We're live.
All right.
Let's see who all's in here. Lars, an unfinished project. We're here crazy early, swinging blue wrenches. We've got the Hot Rod Guy Garage at NSB Customs. Twisted Dennis, how you doing, sir? He says, Deke, tell your wife I said hey.
I'll do that.
Mohawk 62 and Junkyard D are here. My Aunt Nancy's here. Aunt Nancy, tonight we're going to be talking to these guys about how to pass tech inspection at the No Name Nationals. Blue Grit Garage is here. Hey, Blue Grit Garage. By the way, I saw Jim's Fastback Garage. He was looking at some call outs. I think you two would be a good match. Technician Troy is here. Hey, thanks for joining us. Rob's Garage Experiments and Bad Tree Blake.
Heathens assemble.
Heathens are assembling right now. Frankenstein C20 and the One-Eyed Cat. First Responder Garage. Levi is here. Calling Tebow. Cool. Good little crowd. Big James is here. Big James, are you going to be coming out for 28-10-5? Indirect Connection, Stephen Holtz. Hey, by the way, I'll put this reminder out a couple of times during this stream. Anybody who is participating in 28-10-5, or anybody who is participating in Monkey Bike, or anybody who is participating in the Burnout competition, or anybody who is planning specifically to get in the bracket, if you are planning to run any class there specifically, let me know, because this is the time of year where we start doing live streams focused on the various classes at the No Name Nationals. Turbo Tom says, I don't plan to drive down the track. Wow, that's a pretty cool announcement. SSR says, we're coming to put a GM in the winner's circle.
Oh. That'd be cool.
Cool. All right, man. Well, I wanted to greet everybody. And for those of you who do not recognize our guest tonight, it is Deke Denney, the AHRA Tech Inspector Extraordinaire. He is the guy who helps make sure that what goes down the track at the No Name Nationals is fit to do so, and does a great job for us. And he's graciously agreed. We try to do this twice a year to give everybody an opportunity to know what they need to do to pass tech, from basic tech to the more advanced ETs as you go. And I find this to be helpful. I hope you guys do too, because if you go to tech and everything is right and Deke can see it's right, then guess what? You get through tech quicker. And then everybody gets through tech quicker. And then we can all get to Lambert's and the car show quicker and have a good time quicker.
And everything runs more smoothly.
Yes, it does. And less unintended thrashing on a Thursday to get through tech. We've seen people show up with slicks that didn't have drive shaft loops, and people not have overflow bottles and bungee cords holding down batteries and stuff like that. And we're trying to minimize that. So we appreciate you guys being here. Mean Street Mopar has come in. Big Mike of the Hoopty Bar. Big shout out to Big Mike. He has set a great example for all of you guys. Check out his channel. He had a windshield that looked like a road map, and he proactively changed it. Thanks. You need to do it. You guys that have windshields that you have been saying needs to be replaced for 5 or 6 years, do what Mike did. He did it. You can do it too. I did it. Hey, I practiced what I preach. My van had a couple of spots I did not want to crack and splinter. They were repairable with epoxy. I took it in. If they weren't, I'd replace it. Mexican Spec is here. Stephen Holtz. Aaron Germanson. Tony's Hot Rod Garage. Tony's Hot Rod Garage, by the way, he's got a second entry coming to No Name Nationals, bringing 2 cars from Arizona this year.
Wow.
Yeah.
Yes.
Jonathan Reed is here. Slant Daily. Pure Pontiac Garage. Cool. Well, we got our first question here for Deke, so we'll jump into it. Question for Deke. On the rat rod, it has no door windows. Will nets be sufficient?
Okay. Problem with nets. They need to affix to a roll cage. How fast is this rat rod?
If the rat rod's never been run before, give us a ballpark of what kind of power and weight. While Tony's giving us that, Hot Rod Guy Garages, I'm excited for a vacation, only 40 days and a few hours. I don't ever think of No Name Nationals as vacation. I'm excited for it.
Yeah, but all the work that you put into it, John, which is highly appreciated.
Oh, it's a blast. I wouldn't trade it for anything, but I don't ever think of it as vacation. RC Industries here, Indirect Connection, Slant Daily. How's it going, Professor P? He says in the eights if it's lucky. So, and Tony's usually honest about such things. So, what would he need to do to make that kosher?
Well, there's not much you can do if it doesn't have a cage in it. You have nothing to affix your window nets to. Right?
Well, Andrew, James works hard. He does. What would be your recommendation for that, Deke? Is it something you'd like to see on his channel so that you can maybe take a look at it? And
yeah, that would be a pretty good idea, actually.
Okay. Hey,
I'm pretty sure it doesn't have a cage in it.
Hey, Lars or Unfinished Project, if one of you guys could help keep little notes like this, just so that at the end of the show I can make sure to get Deke whatever links he needs. Levi's asking, how does one set up the cage certification process or appointment? I can say that Deke is scheduled to be at No Name Nationals early on Thursday. So we'll have a full working day this Thursday. And I would just say that we need to do this by appointment. So Levi, if you have a cage you want certified, let me know and I'll work it out with Deke and we'll figure it out. We'll get you an appointment for such. And Deke can tell you about the process of actually getting the cert done. You want to run through that for anybody that's never done that before, Deke? Gotten a cage certified, chassis certification?
Well, I mean, there's not a lot to it. I would be measuring I'll measure the thickness of the tubing. I will do a thorough inspection of the weld, make sure all the welds are sound and complete, attached in the proper points. You know what I'm saying? I mean, it's not really hate filled or anything like that. If he's run the car before or ever had it certed before, I mean, there shouldn't be much to it unless it's all brand new stuff.
Basically, if your cage is built according to the rule book, it should certify just fine. This is a more in-depth inspection of the cage itself.
Right.
That's basically the easiest way.
Driver's compartment. How it attaches to the frame, how it attaches to the hoop, the down bars in the rear, the door bars, and all that.
Well, jumping ahead of Levi's question a little bit, the place where we see this the most are when guys are going faster than what we call an 850 cage, when guys are going faster than that cage and they're running down in the fives and even in the fours. And so there are some real differences in the construction of a cage that's designed to go quicker than that.
Absolutely.
That's a bigger place of where this question comes into play. Okay, Slant is asking, what is the age requirement for monkey bikes? Now, I'm going to tell you that's been a hanging chat. However, Slant Daily, Shane, What I want to do for the 16th is I want to have on a panel of monkey bike riders. And so he's a little ahead of me. But remember when I asked really early up front in this live stream, if you are planning to run a specific class, let me know, because I want to have a panel of monkey bikers. I want to have a panel of burnout guys. I want to have a panel of 28-10-5 guys. And the bracket's a little different because it's kind of our biggest, most general class, but I definitely want to have those 3 classes on. And I'd like to do monkey bikes this upcoming Friday. So if you're planning to run a monkey bike, let me know in the comments, or you can text me, you can email me, whatever. I'm just kind of curious what our field's going to look like. Sean O'Brien says, I had a question. Is the race pro tree or sportsman tree? The bracket's a sportsman tree. The 28-10-5 is an instant green. However, we're planning to have a Saturday bracket that's going to be a little bit different. It's going to be a little bit different twist on the Friday bracket. So we don't know quite yet what tree we're going to run for that. But it's a sportsman tree in the Friday bracket. It is instant green in 28-10-5. 113 cycle. Can monkey bikes tech on Thursday? Yes, they can.
Yes, they can.
Yeah. We'll have a scale there, and we're going to be looking for things like the dead man switch and proper attire, because that is part of passing tech with the monkey bikes. So show up with the proper attire to drive one. Yeah, the call-outs, you can do what you want. We have guys request pro tree and whatever for call-outs. My mom is here. Now, Andrew Nelson says, I will not ask Deke to do a 750 cert at the track. That should be done on a lift, depending. Works hard enough and to limit it to 850 certs. It all depends what we have. We might even have the possibility of having that at the track. But that said, it depends what kind of demand we get. We've not had a lot of demand for those certs for the No Name Nationals just yet. We will be able to handle a few, but so far it looks like we're okay.
And a brand new 750 cert is going to be a lot more in depth than a re-sticker of an NHRA or IHRA sticker.
Yep.
Or AHRA, as the case may be.
I believe there actually is a lift at the track, but
yes, there's one in the building.
It may not be available to us, because I certainly can't say that's available, because that's going to be management's call. But like I said, if we get demand for that kind of cert, we can certainly take a look at that. We might have what we need to do it, but we would need to know it ahead of time, hence the nature of needing appointments. Blue Grit Garage says, I will most likely be bringing the 66 Mustang 6-cylinder. I will put the battery back up front, check the wheel stud length, and either put the stock lap belts back in or replace with new SFI belts. Anything that he needs to know about if he does the new SFI belts, because the attachment points become a thing then.
Yeah, because I'm sure that car doesn't have a cage in it.
Right.
I would say he would probably be better off with original style lap belt.
Now, something that he mentioned, wheel studs, and I actually had this happen to me on my van. I think I probably even sent Deke a picture of it. But
yeah,
I had
spooky.
Yeah, you know what? I'll show that to him, because this is a reminder about how these wheel studs work in reality, because I've had people want to argue this, and they find out why. This is a Dorman lug that broke on my van, a brand new Dorman lug. And if you look, there's the hex. They break right where that shank meets the hex. If you look in the hex, there's only 3 threads, right? So people say that, well, you have an inch of engagement in all of that shank, but man, if it breaks and it's even with that, which it usually is on an aluminum wheel, you got nothing.
And the shank doesn't hold the wheel on.
Right. Well, yeah, but it's going to break up above it anyway.
Right.
And then you get this.
A brand new one straight from
That broke.
Wuhan.
That broke before the torque wrench got to 85 pound-feet. It had not clicked and broke. With anti-seize on the side of the shank, it wasn't dragging on the rim or anything. So there's a reason that you want proper length studs.
And that was OEM nuts, right?
That's the wheel that's been on it for 40 years. And studs.
And the wheel that came on that van.
Yeah, came on the van.
Didn't that sense?
In fact, it was her van. My Aunt Nancy there bought it brand new in 1985. All right. So Junkyard D, 113, running monkey bikes, awesome. So you guys, I'm going to be reaching out to you. I want to do a monkey biker live for next Friday. So if you're interested, let me know. Cousin Cletus, how's it going? Blue Grit Garage, only question is I have an autocross the Sunday before. I would like to run those 200 Treadwear DOT tires. Not sure what that goes with. That's all right.
I don't know what kind of issue it would be.
Blue Grit says they are not slicks, so I assume I'm okay. Well, okay for what? I wouldn't think you need to run a drive shaft loop for that. I mean, drive shaft loop is a good idea for anything.
Anything with the drive shaft. Yep.
Yeah. It's a good idea, but you don't have to have it for that car. I don't believe you're going to be running anywhere near the ET, and you're not running slick, so you should be fine. Junkyard DS, can the lights be set for call outs to give a second or negotiate at the line? Mohawk's going to need it. Yeah, well, that's a dial in. Tall Garage, how's it going? Do a dial in bracket race. That'd be interesting. Do that. Yeah, Russell had one break just like that. So Tony sent me a picture of this. Let's see. I'll put that up. So he's got a door that looks like he's got a chopped top there.
Right.
And there's his net.
So it'll be a permanent fixture of the door?
So in other words, Tony, would it be a permanent fixture of the door in lieu of glass or Lexan? Max Wedge Dick Dastardly, how's it going? He says his Mustang has a 6-point cage. It was put in before subframe connectors were allowed, but roll bars were also allowed, so I installed to stiffen the chassis. Okay, so that car has a 6-point cage. It's an autocross car.
So he's got a crossbar in the back to attach the shoulder harness to. Well, then it's his. Well, no faster than it is.
There you go.
It would be his choice if he wants to run the updated SFIs or the stock lap belt configuration.
Mexican Spec, no, I'm not blaming my aunt for the broken lug, because in all the time she had it, she never broke a lug. I did. My aunt never broke a lug on the van. Levi asks if 530 is the cutoff for an 850 cage. It's actually not. It's not even that deep, Levi. It's more like 550, I think. But I'm not sitting there looking to 549, run down and throw someone out. I'm not looking to throw anybody out, but I'm not going to ignore it if They do.
I've got it as 535 now.
535.
Yes, sir.
So, all right. Twisted Mopar asks, I didn't think windows were a requirement. Window nets with cars running faster than 7 in the 8th.
And we don't know how fast that rod is, right? Low 8.
We don't know yet. Tony says he'll be lucky to get an 8. I mean, I think it's new and hasn't been run before. So he's not playing poker with us.
Right.
It's a new build. This is a good point from Battery Productions. Remember to flush your antifreeze. Yes, glycol coolant is not allowed. Plan on that. Blue Grid, I cannot run both belts, so at least have a shoulder belt. I would think your harness would have that.
Right.
Professor P agrees, 535. That's his number on that. What about roll bar ET? Where is the ET where you must have a roll bar? And AHRA and has consolidated bar and cage together. It's a few tenths. It's like 3.5 tenths. But I think that the bar is a little bit more liberal with AHRA, as I recall.
Yes. Let's see here. Roll bar. 735 and quicker. 835 and quicker, and a convertible.
Now, I will tell you, and I can say this, is Dallas has given some grace to people running under in the 7s because of all these factory cars that are running quicker. But do remember, these factory cars that are running quicker have numerous airbags and are made to be much safer inherently. If your car's going to outgrow it, go straight to the cage anyway.
Exactly. For a few tenths, yeah.
Yeah. T's Good Time Garage is here. What's going on, man? Slant Daily, I will say that Dallas has said that he gives grace in that area because the bar and the cage are so close together. But that is the traditional rulebook number. I don't plan to throw anybody out who runs the best they've ever run and runs, 730s or 720s or teens and doesn't have a bar. But what I will do is I'll tell them, hey, congratulations, you got a really bad hot rod here. You might want to think about a cage. Which is entirely different than a car that runs in the 4s that has an 850 cage or not enough cage or a par. Okay. Very different. 4 tenths in the low 7s and 4 tenths in the low 5s are literally, we're talking life and death type velocities there.
Yep. Light years apart.
Levi wants to run a 5 so he can get a rule. Well, Levi, you got to do it first, so then we can talk about it. Motor Swap says, I've never had a car as fast as I do now, and I know I need to cage it to track it. I got to tell you, I saw a new Challenger, looked like a brand new one that was running 6 O's at Shady Side. Just looked like a stock car, but gosh, things make what, 900 horsepower?
Yeah.
Man, I think it was a Demon. I don't know. All that new plasticky stuff all looks alike to me. But I think it was one of those Challengers, the Demon package that's supercharged. He was running 6 O's.
750 horse. And then when you go to the 170, the Demon 170, that one's a 1025 horse.
Man, which brings up a point. That car can run that quick and has air conditioning because it was 90 degrees and he had all the windows up. So I was assuming he had AC on when he was running around the pits. turn your AC off before you go get in the staging lane so it doesn't drip water.
Exactly.
Right. Welcome, Barrows. Tony says if you're running fours, you know what cage you need. You'd be surprised how many people don't care. And I got to tell you, I'll just say it now. There are a lot of outlaw tracks in that part of the country that just don't care. They don't care how fast people run as long as they have a cage. But I'm telling you, we saw a car get cut completely in half at Wilkesboro, hitting the sign with the time on it at the top end. I mean, we just can't play that game. If you got the money to build, that kind of horsepower, and you've got that kind of money to build that kind of car, then you absolutely have the money to build or commission that kind of cage.
Absolutely.
JB says if you're running fours in the eighth, you're in the wrong place. No, not necessarily. If a person wants to have the right safety equipment, wants to come out and run times like that, hey, I'm all for it. I think it's great. We like fast cars. That's interesting. So Blake's Duster has only a driver's side door bar. How did you wind up with that, Blake? JB says we're just having fun. Yeah, there's people who have fun running in the fours too, and more power to them. You want to be a good community member, and you got something that fast, and you got the proper safety equipment. By all means, bring it. There's nothing wrong with that. Nothing wrong with that at all. Nitro coupe of some kind that runs that quick in the eighth and whatever. You can do any of that kind of stuff. You have the right safety equipment, good community member, and all that. Then nothing wrong with it. Blake says he says, I don't know. The car only runs. Blake did just buy that car. And his car is on the border of needing a cage for the ET that it runs. So anybody have any specific questions?
So Blake has run that car already?
It's a race car when he got it, and the previous owner has been 7.0s or 7.10s. That's about where it is. It's missing a passenger door bar in the roll bar. Sounds to me like you should put the bar back, though.
Yeah, and I've seen Blake do that work. He knows how. He did it on the Death Pumpkin.
Yep.
And a fine job on that end.
Oh yeah, I agree. The Bad Tree guys, I was mentioning this to him yesterday. Seems like if the Bad Tree camp keeps a car a while, it just gets a little better and a little better as they have it. Those guys tend to make their stuff better.
Yep.
Yes, Blue Grid, I'm aware. Thank you, though. Tony's Hot Rod Garage will be live after this if you want to get a tour of that rat rod to see what he's got going on. Slant Daily asks Deke, talk about engine diapers and transmission shields.
Okay. I like diapers. We currently don't have anything in the AHRA book that dedicates to diapers, but the other sanctioning bodies, using their numbers, 630 and quicker with a power adder, 545 and quicker, naturally aspirated, or power adder. So everything 545 and quicker would have it. But 630, you don't need it for 545 naturally aspirated. As far as the trans blanket and shield, our rule book as well as the others. $6.99. The flex plate shield is $6.39. The flex plate and or flywheel themselves is $7.49. So $7.49, you need to have an aftermarket flex plate or flywheel if you're running a stick. Then when you get to $6.99, you either need a blanket or a shield or a trans case, whichever you prefer. And then $6.39 and quicker, the flex plate shield that goes on the outside of the bell housing.
Now, I'll tell you, a blanket or a shield.
There again, if you're running a dead and bare case or something of that nature, you're already covered on that.
These, so you can run a blanket or a shield. I'll tell you, John Cope says that a blanket has more of a guarantee of stopping the shrapnel if you blow a drum up. So certainly your call. And plus a blanket fits under more floors too. What I wouldn't want you to do is to elect to do a shield and then find out it doesn't fit your floor 3 days before the event.
Exactly.
Motor swap, I've never seen anybody there who had that kind of horsepower. Our event record motor swaps is a 552. I think a 552 at 122, 124, somewhere in there. I think the highest mile an hour we've ever seen, I think, is a 127. So there's a good chance that that's going to drop this year. I would say it's a high likelihood that we will have a new low ET this year come out of the event. Motor swaps, you need 500 subs to participate. Better get on that. Absolutely. And you know what? You can do it in 40 days and 3 hours and 27 minutes. Yes, you can. But you got to go after it. There's no like taking a week off in there. Bad Tree Blake says, get the neutral. Deke, you want like a thing every year.
You froze up. I couldn't hear the last part of that, John.
Anything about neutral safety switches that you'd like to mention in general?
Yeah, put them on there. Get them on there. Make sure they work. and I'll be searching for bypass switches. Like, well, I won't name the channel, but I know one guy. Always put them on his time.
It's a channel you would expect. Anyway, I'll leave it at that.
Good call, Tom. Good call.
You're right.
we must be diplomatic.
Well, yeah. But if I said who it was, there is like 0 out of 100 people who will be shocked. How about that? What are the requirements for manual transmission? So just in general, what kind of manual transmission concerns would you have?
Well, there we go again with the ET with a flywheel shield. Oddly enough, they don't have any blanket requirements really for a stick. And there's no, other than what might have came from the factory for the neutral safety shield. A lot of the later vehicles had a clutch switch. You had to push the clutch in to start it. There's so few people running sticks anymore that
Levi says to check the neutral safety switch. He's seen too many crashes in the staging lanes. Yeah, that's a good place to have your crash if you don't have one.
Yep.
Deke, I'm going to switch over real quickly. I'm going to switch over to a different feed so that I'm not glitching. But if there's anything here specific you want to address, feel free. But I will switch over on your screen. Just a second. All right. Get rid of that glitchiness.
Okay. One thing for the guys, if they're running air shifter or electric shifter through your MSD. Okay, you on? I can't hear you, John.
There we go.
Okay. So the guys that are running like a MSD and are running an air shifter for their automatic transmission, or air or electric shifter, either way, but if it's triggered through your MSD through a shift, you need a bypass for that. So say you go to start the car and your throttle stick, it hits the RPM and it moves the shifter into gear. You follow me?
Yep.
It's a good idea to check and make sure that you have a bypass so that when it's not armed until you're actually on the track. I had a guy, he went to start his Chevy Nova one time and the throttle stopped. So it came up to 6,500 RPM. It clicked it in gear and it pinned his son between the tailgate of the tow truck and the front of the race truck. Luckily, the child wasn't hurt badly, but just putting it out there. It needs to be able to be armed on the track, disarmed anywhere else. Stranger shit happens than a throttle stick in the face.
Yeah, another thing that one thing that is tech is make sure you have at least 2 throttle return springs.
Yep.
Okay. So why don't you go over with them on the throttle return springs and how to know how many you have and what counts?
The ones that are on the throttle shaft, on your Hollies and Edelbrock, all that, I will count that as one if they work good. I'll check them and make sure it's actually working. And then an additional external spring. That counts as 2 for me. I did see some guys that had some of the throttle bodies that only had 1 on them. And I told them they needed to put an extra on it. And it's not always easy to find a spot on a injected car to do that. Personally, for my stuff, I always made a bracket. 1 pulled the throttle forward. 1 was below center and pulled it backwards. That way you're not putting so much downward wear on your throttle shaft. But that was my personal preference.
Now, here's an interesting point here. Big Block 402 says, I have 2 springs and 2 carbs.
Right. The the external spring should be on the linkage. If you've got two carburetors that have the springs on the tab, correct?
Right.
You still need an external spring
Right. So
because
you need 4 springs if you have 2 carburetors.
yeah, I'll buy that. I'll go with that.
Because I wouldn't want one of those to hang open.
Right.
Mohawk mentions 12 inches of rubber fuel line in the whole system. So that'd be another good general topic to hit. I got to tell you, you guys have generally improved all around on the area of tech since the first No Name National. So I'm really proud of that. But we're just kind of hitting some general things because it makes it easier and quicker for everyone to get through tech with less
Sure.
headache if everybody knows what they need to do before they get there. And that's why we're having this live right now. So, Mr. Deke, if you want to kind of remind these guys of what is needed in the way of rubber fuel line, what would be allowed, what would not, etc.
Well, like I say, regular 3/8, which is what most everyone uses, the neoprene line that you get at your local Napa store. We like to not see any more than a foot of it on the whole car. You'll have a small piece from the tank to the hard line, a small piece from the hard line to the fuel pump, and anywhere you put it, you shouldn't need over 2 to 2.5 inches to make the transition from the one metal line to the fuel pump, another metal line to the carburetor. You know what I mean? Just a short pieces with good clamps on each end.
Now, if people want to run a flexible hose for more than 12 inches, what kind of flexible hose can they run? What are their options there?
Uh, they make fuel line that has the outer braid on it.
Not washing machine hose because it's not rated for fuel.
Yeah, and I've seen there's one guy with a channel I've seen run that, and it'll swell up as big as your arm once it gets hot. But yeah, the braided coated line specified for fuel is fine. Hard line is fine, just steel line. But like I say, we really want to keep down to a minimum on the neoprene, bare neoprene fuel hose. Because that stuff, man, when it gets hot out, and most of you guys are running more than the 4.5 pounds factory fuel pressure. So that's an added concern too.
Now, what about the push lock stuff? Is it considered regular rubber since it's rated higher pressure? It's not externally braided, but I know what he's talking about. He's talking about like the factory fuel injection hoses.
Oh yeah, those are plastic, right?
I think there's something like that. Is that what you're talking about, Russell? Also, Bad Tree Productions ask if you have a fan running there because it's buffering the audio a little bit. Do you have a fan running, Deke?
No, I do not.
Okay. I'm not sure what that is. I hear that sometimes when we have Deke on. I'm not sure.
I've got a radio in the background, but
I'm not sure what it is. It's picking up something.
huh.
Barkley is here from the Schmidt Show Garage. Hello, Barkley. How's it going? So, Barkley, if you're not familiar with this, we have Deke on live twice a year to, maybe his mic. We have Barkley on live twice. Barkley, comma, we have Deke on live twice a year to go over things necessary to pass tech at the No Name Nationals. Because as you know, we bring a pretty extensive tech program to the drag strip at Sykeston, the Skelton Family Raceway, every year. And I'd like to think that we run a really good program at the No Name Nationals for tech. Dizzy Izzy joins us. How's it going? One-Eyed Cat. And by the way, big shout out to the One-Eyed Cat, Don, because he has done more to make his car safer and better in the last year. It is really impressive. He has cleaned up all kinds of fuel and electrical stuff, and it made that car better and safer than it's ever been. Blue grid, it may be. I think it may be Deke's mic. Are you wearing a clip-on mic, Deke?
Yeah.
Okay, I think that's what it is. I think it's rubbing his overalls a little bit. That's exactly right.
Could
Buffalo Brian, what's up, my man? Ed's Machine. The going gentleman. Yeah, Barkley says should be in good shape. Yep. Well, we like for everybody to try to set a good example. And lots of you guys do set great examples. New Guys Guitar, how's it going?
I wanted to add one more thing with that. We were talking about the neutral safety switch, and a lot of times those are wired through the shifter. And also on the shifter, you need a reverse lockout. For the guys that get down track and feel the need to shove it in neutral once they pass the finish line, we like for it to stop at neutral and not hit reverse.
Now, when you say a reverse lockout, there's a lot of guys who run factory manual transmission shifters that don't have them. Do you mean like a reverse lockout manual and automatic? What would be the differences there?
So you just can't, when you're in drive, for example, and you shove it in neutral, you have to push a knob, pull a lever, or squeeze a handle to actually go on into reverse.
Right. For your automatics, your factory automatics, generally, yes, there's some kind of gate that stops you from doing that. What about a factory manual transmission car where there is no gate and you're running a factory shifter?
Manual transmission?
Yes.
Huh.
It'd be hard to get it in reverse. Somebody who's shifting with enough adrenaline could try.
Yeah, it won't go.
Fast Thing 89, most of the rules are based off the AHRA rule book. In fact, all of the rules are. There have been minor updates over the years, but yes, it's based on the AHRA rule book, and you can get that right now, the last revision. Junkyard D wants to ask about floors.
Linoleum's nice. What type of floors is he asking about?
He's asking about floor pans, I think, because he was, that they're building the car stone soup that has, it's got Flintstone floors in it. Like, it looks like there's no floor pans at all. I can see the top of the transmission cross member when they open the door.
Nice. Well, he needs to get the welding then.
Yeah, put something. You got to have a floor pan in there.
Got to have a floor pan.
And it needs to be attached.
Yes.
You could make a street sign, for a floor pan if you think it's cool and stylistic, but it has to be attached.
Right.
And Wrenching with Ray thought I'd say hi. Yeah, so Junkyard D says requirements for replacement rusted floor pans, material used, sealed. So how much do you expect from these guys? Let's say they have a rusted floor pan and it needs to have a replacement floor. What would be the minimum that would be expected if you wanted to make something like that pass tech? I mean, would it be acceptable to have a floor pan screwed or riveted in place if necessary? I know we're asking kind of a silly question, but some of these cars it applies to them to pass tech.
I'd rather see it welded in.
I would too. But I mean, I
If you're
think you
if you're just covering up a hole, go borrow a sign off a post next to your house,
yeah.
and you can screw if you screw that through. I'll buy that on a you
Yeah.
know
That's the kind of thing that you would get a little bit of grace on one year and some suggestions on how to make that legit for the next. But if you have the means to do a legitimate floor pan replacement, that's what you should do, right?
absolutely.
Lars just put up a link to the A book. If you want to browse or peruse that, it's there for you.
Thanks, Lars.
All right, Guy Garage. I'm not able to zoom in on those just yet, but I will get those to Deke. Yeah, Junkyard D's like the whole section where the feet rest is missing. I could see the top of the transmission cross member.
Yeah, that all needs to be covered, and really like to see it welded in. It's
So
not hard. It's not hard.
So Stone Soup is going to have a week and a few more days to get there. Wow, that's going to be like 30 days out. And Jim's Fastback Garage has a factory force feed with no manual safety switch, but it's a factory manual transmission. So,
Right.
and that's okay.
Yep. How fast is it?
And if you don't know how, if you've never run it before, that's a perfectly acceptable thing to say. Levi's asking, will I need my license when I go through tech like an NHRA license? We're going to get some opportunities to license if you need to.
Yes. How fast is his car?
Levi, what's the fastest you've ever run? If you want to tell us, what's the quickest you've run? Your best times for it. Jim doesn't know how fast it is. Yeah, if it's not been on a track before, then we're just going to kind of assume that you're in a category of basic tech is going to cover you. 6:30. Okay. You're right there where you just need a license. Yeah. You'll have an opportunity to make license passes there. Or if you want to, you can get a license ahead of time. Not a bad idea. I know that Just Mopar Joe did that this season. He got his license ahead of time. He showed up at the track with a 648 dial on his car. I don't know if it was something like that, and they just said, "Oh, you need a license." Oh, really? I don't even know if he ever ran that or not, but I know that they look at that when you come in. So,
Sure.
So anyway, he's covered now. Should be faster until that's proven 6:30. Exactly. Hippie Miller suggests body panel glue and rivet sheet metal for floors. I think that'd be okay.
Sure.
No, Mo McDonald, I don't want them stealing my signs. That takes right out of the event's pocket. So no, that's not okay.
Well, bring your signs from home.
Yeah, I mean that just comes straight out of the event's pocket. I didn't hear if you said I need a neutral safety switch if I have a separate sign and fuel switch on the dash, but stock location battery in the engine bay. What? A safety switch, separate sign, and fuel switch on the dash, but stock location battery in the. I'm not even sure what that means, Sean. Andrew Nelson, the AHRA licensing process is substantially similar. Yes. And Barrows reminds you that at Lambert's, in the show at Lambert's, everything passes tech. Yes. If your car were to completely flunk tech, it would still be up to you if you want to take it to Lambert's. You could do that. So Jim's had his car to track before and went 13.98 in the quarter at 99. Okay. Levi's going to be running late for the event, so he wants to be prepared. That's excellent. Good deal. Bad Tree says get the Illinois highway signs on the way to No Name Nationals. You know, the mayor of one town in Illinois has got $6 million missing at one of those towns in Illinois. So Illinois must be so used to theft that I don't think they'd ever noticed. They had a mayor stolen $6 million and she's still in office. So I guess road signs be the least of their worries. Is that the thinking?
That's the thinking.
Sean says I have my ignition and fuel pump on a switch on the dash. Okay, there we go. And stock battery location. Do I need a safety cutoff on the back of the car?
No,
But your battery is located in the front. What say you, Deke? I have my ignition and fuel pump on a switch on the dash, but stock front battery location.
he doesn't need a cutoff.
Yeah, that's what I would think. Yeah. Are there different rules for the burnout competition, or is the same for the track? There are things for the burnout competition that certainly wouldn't be as stringent because the cars don't ever achieve any speed. There are certain things that you should have, though. There are things that we don't want to let in the burnout pit that would be dangerous to others. I can tell you that. One-eyed cat mentions waiting on open-ended lug nuts. Open-ended lug nuts make the tech process easier. They're not required, but they do make tech much easier because the tech inspector reserves the right to pull any and all of those lug nuts to make sure that the studs have proper engagement. When they're open-ended, you can see it better visual.
Yep. And if you do have closed-in lug nuts, bring a lug wrench to the tech line.
Any rules on running drag radials? Well, drag radials are a drag tire, and they will require a drive shaft loop like a slick would.
Yep.
Ray says, how fast can I go with a 4-point cage? Is that a 4-point bar? I'm guessing, is that a 4-point bar?
Yeah, it's a bar, not a cage.
Yeah, that. You can get nuts that have inspection caps. I guess. I tell you, though, things that snap on lug nuts and lug nut covers and all that are just stuff to fly off your car on the track, in my opinion.
Yeah, just like hubcaps.
Yeah, I don't like anything like that. That's just me. I'm not saying you can't, and it would depend on your ET. If you got a 97 Pontiac Grand Am that has little things that push over the lugs, big deal. But for a fast car, I would get rid of anything like that. Yes, one-eyed cat. You don't want to have a snapped lug. That's right. Yeah, so Slant Daily asks, just in general, talk about parachutes.
I like parachutes. Let's see. What did we in the 8th mile? 125 and quicker. In the quarter mile, 150 and quicker.
So 125 miles an hour is your speed break on needing a chute.
Yep.
And just in general, tell folks how a chute is supposed to attach to the chassis.
Oh, you can hook it to the battery disconnect strip. I've seen that. I'm kidding. You can attach it to a solid cross member under the chassis. I've seen them. Well, on my altered, it's hooked to the differential. It goes right to the differential because it's a solid chassis.
Old McDonald's asks a question that's just strange to me. What about a bad engine mount? Why would you ask that? What does that even mean? If you
needs
have a
stuff.
bad engine mount, fix it.
Yeah.
If you can't afford to fix a bad engine mount, you can't afford to go racing that day.
Exactly.
If you have a bad engine mount on the car in your thumbnail picture, it's a little rubber sandwich that takes about 15 minutes to change, and you can put one on it that won't fail. Sean O'Brien says, at my track, if you have two chutes, they both have to open together, not separately.
I'll buy that. I don't know how many cars we're going to have show up with two seats, but yeah, I'll buy that.
Okay. Junkyard DS, a good question. When are steel valve stems required?
Oh, we've been over that, over that, over that. And I don't know why I don't have that in my notes. When in doubt, put them in.
Speaking of motor mount, Ryan Barsness says, I just broke my Coronet, unfortunately. The fan went through the radiator. Did you break a motor mount? Is that how that happened? I learned that one time that same way. Turn your stock mount into solid mount with a welder. Some words from Bad Tree. Those guys come up with some good solutions to things that work.
Sure.
I like their engineering. Some people come up with things that don't work and then tell others, and that's horrible. The Bad Tree guys, they come up with stuff that's ingenious, but it actually works when they do it. They put thought into it, and they really come up with some good stuff, some well-engineered things that are on budget, stuff like that. Channel's a good place to find that kind of thing.
Metal valve stems are required on all entries, mandatory on all entries, running 749 and quicker in the 8th mile.
So pretty much, if your car is quick enough to need the bar, it's quick enough to need the metal valve stems.
Yep.
Blue Grid asks, as far as belts go on a slow car that runs 18s in the quarters, can I run stock 66 Mustang lap belts to pass tech?
Yes.
Yeah. Andrew Nelson says, last year we discussed screw-in valve stems required on a car over 100, so 100 miles an hour. That's about right. That's about where that jobs.
Yeah, pretty close.
And if you run tubes in your tires, please run rim screws. I don't want anybody ripping a valve stem out and having a wreck. So one way or the other, you can run tube, you can run tubeless. Just don't forget the rim screws if you're running tubes. Or beadlocks or whatever. But I don't think we ever had anybody there with beadlocks yet. But regardless, make sure that you're not going to rip a valve stem out.
Sure.
Let's see. Dust Devil Garage asks, do I need a hood?
No.
You know, I like these builds that a hood was never a part of the build in the first place.
Yeah.
Now, Junkyard D asks, if replacing stock lap belts, can you replace with aftermarket lap belts?
Huh.
Now, you know, so I'm going to read something into your question, Junkyard D, just to try to prevent this from being a thing. If you mean aftermarket lap belts, as in designed to be lap belt replacements for your lap belts, I would think that's fine. If you're talking about just using part of an SFI harness, now you're trying to skirt that, right?
It still has to have the expiration date and all that.
Andrew Nelson is saying 749 and 89. Deke answered it, but I will say, Andrew, that's that little tiny bit of area where there's some place to give grace. There's definitely more grace to be found there than there is at 480 with an 850 cage. So there's places where get this in order for next year is okay, and there's places where it's not. Fast Stang says, I think not running a hood actually will slow the car down. It probably would. You know, I'd rather a person run without a hood because they don't have one or they haven't cut it up or whatever and take whatever that is. I mean, we're here to have fun. We're here to be safe and have fun.
Right.
Barrows says for the burnout competition, 5-point harness expired in 2022. Are they okay? They look and feel brand new.
I can't speak to the burnout competition. There's not a category for that in the
Yeah, I get what you're saying, Barrows. I don't want that to become a secondary market for them, but I don't really have a problem with that. I mean, you're not getting over 10, 15 miles an hour at the most in that pit.
Hopefully.
So, yeah, right. Unless you're Dizzy Izzy. Now, I think Dizzy's made 35 in there before. They sell 3-inch SFI lap belts for okay, that's okay. So if it's an SFI, but it's a lap only belt, SFI for a car that's not quick enough that has to have a harness. Okay.
We'll buy that.
Yeah, that sounds good. Bad Tree says, how fast for jacket and pants? So what are your brakes to have an SFI jacket, and what is the brake to have pants?
I would say if Blake's going to show up, he needs to wear pants at all times.
Yeah, I would agree with that. Hey, Andrew, by the way, we're this is good though. We're all on the same page.
Okay.
There's kind of really what happens is kind of that magic number is when you get to running sixes. That's pretty much when you just need to get 1 foot out or 1 foot in and make it a real race car. And there's some stuff that starts really coming in about 749, 735 right in there. But sixes is really when you just have to get your stuff caught up. Or either that or you got to slow the car down.
A single layer jacket would be 735 and 50.
Same thing. Yeah, right. It's another one of those things.
And then once you jump to 639, then you need the 2-layer. And you'll need the pants and gloves as well.
We've given a little bit of grace because right now it is possible to pay for more power and more speed than ever before, right? And cars have gotten quicker and quicker and quicker. And so we've tried to allow some grace for some of this stuff because some guys can get quick fast, right? But at the end of the day, you got to catch up your safety equipment. 113, that sounds great. I'll be in touch, man. Jim's Fastback Garage says the same thing that has had Deke and I scratching our heads for years. He says, so a 56-year-old seatbelt passes tech, but a 5-year-old racing belt are not safe. I did not write that rule, and that's one I would lobby to change.
Absolutely.
I mean, that's one I think is if I had to guess, I would say seatbelt manufacturers probably came up with some crazy UV light study and got people to buy into it. I would rather let the tech inspectors look at the condition of the belts and use their judgment. But as of right now, do remember, we got a twofold thing here. We're following a rule book that's done by the sanctioning body that has been reviewed, and insurance has to see has been reviewed. Remember, because they're going to reverse engineer all this if there's ever a problem, right? A crash, a claim, a lawsuit. And so that's kind of what we're dealing with. But if SFI were to ever get together and were to, interview people out in the field and take a poll among tech inspectors and promoters and sanctioning body presidents, I have a feeling that will probably change. But I can't change that, and I can't change it today. But I certainly would give input on it because I agree with you. Wrenching with Ray, you're far too quick to not be running a jacket. Fastang, I don't know what the deal is with the belts like that, but I would say that well, I'll tell you what thing though, Deke does have discretion over this. If you have a brand new belt and it is frayed, it's still not good. I
Right.
mean, how did it get frayed? I know, but
That is correct.
Dizzy's got a dual plane intake that he modified. That's outside of, I mean, if you're asking Barkley and he's seen it, that's cool. That is outside the spectrum of tech. Andrew Nelson says the 2-year belt rule has driven many former racers away from the sport. I can see that. I think it's kind of crazy. And also, too, I believe Andrew Nelson told me that land speed racing will accept a belt for more years than drag racing. So your belt might not be good for 100 miles an hour, but you can then take that same belt and go 200 miles an hour.
And they're controlled by SFI as well.
I didn't write that stuff. I don't agree with it, but I will go along because we have certain standards that we have to enforce, and we do.
And Bonneville doesn't have guardrails.
That's right.
You're not gonna run into anything. You'll run out of gas before you run into anything that you would cause a collision.
Yeah, Bear Rose. There's all kinds of perfectly. My race car came with 2 sets of belts. One of them had never been installed, new in the box, never seen UV light, and they're out of date. I get it. I totally get it. Levi said he's asking about coolant reservoirs and catch cans.
16-ounce minimum, preferably attached with something other than zip ties.
You can use zip ties in a pop bottle, but we're sitting here telling you, you have 40 days and change to do a better job. You know, just make that part of the car and do a good job, because just because there are things that will pass tech when you triage them, we're giving you a lot of heads up to let you do a better job of that. Make it a proper catch can.
And most especially if you've got a car that does have an issue with overheating.
Yeah. Well, the other thing too is not just even overheating. You don't want that stuff getting under your tires or anyone else's. Catch cans are a good thing to have. Dust Devil's asking, I know it's been asked many times, but what's the rule on a roll bar, not a cage? Technically, the roll bar, I believe, is $735, and the cage is $699. But man, Dallas gives a lot of grace on that little bit of difference between when the bar comes in and the cage does. So what I would say is, if you're really on the border of the bar, I would plan on the cage, because you're going to fly past that 3.5 tenths. It is easier than ever in 2024 to make a car too fast for the safety equipment.
Yep.
Now, I remember when I was a kid, it took a lot more time and money and work and resources and this kind of thing to get a car quick enough to ever outrun this stuff. I mean, like, when I was a teenager, any aluminum big block Mopar heads, and forget about small block, that was some really exotic stuff. And the people who were flying were taking old iron heads and sitting here importing these things and having hundreds of hours in them. And, a lot, and you didn't have any of this 440 source, any of that back then. You didn't call up and order a 4.25-inch stroke crank. No, there were guys getting factory forged cranks and welding them up and offset grinding them. And these guys had to really, really work to make cars quick enough. And so you didn't have nearly as many people outrunning the speed equipment as you do now. So this is kind of a relatively recent thing, how quickly people can get cars too quick for their speed equipment. So that's the reason that we give a little grace on some things. But you guys have every opportunity, and if you can make the car quick, you can make it safe. You can afford to make it quick, you can afford to make it safe.
Absolutely.
If you can only afford to do one or the other, afford to make it safe, then afford to make it quick.
Save your money for the
Yeah, absolutely.
head.
Bad Tree says people were taking 400s to scrap for the extra cash, and now they're what people want to be. Oh, I agree with that.
Oh,
That was one time. Levi wants to know about neck and back brace restraints. He says NHRA says 150 and faster must have one or the other.
yep,
I would buy that.
yep, and that was probably one of the newest rules in the NHRA.
I'm going to tell you, if you're running 125 in the eighth, I think you should have it. That's a lot of velocity.
Yeah, it is.
I'm not going to supersede anything the rule book says, but I am saying just think of the kind of wreck you would get in at that kind of speed in the eighth. Wrenching with Ray says, I went 649 at 135 with no cage and lap belts at Mocan and got booted. How many times did you go 649 at 135 with no cage and lap belts at Mocan before you got booted? That's my counter question. Okay, so Fastang brings up, what are the rules for a newer car, like a Tesla or other car with no cage? NHRA lets them run with no cage. Why is that, Deke?
Well, I can't speak for NHRA, but I don't think anybody ever planned on that happening.
That's part of it.
You know, and a year and a half ago, a couple of years ago, I was down at Sykeston, and there was a Tesla all-wheel drive out there. I guess they all are probably. And that thing ran 620, and it was squawking the tires, trying to lose traction down track. And the only safety equipment it had was probably, I don't know, maybe Elon Musk's warranty sheet in the glove box.
So bear in mind that generally speaking, it's the 2014 and newer cars that other sanctioning bodies allow to run that quick without those added things. But remember, they have multiple airbags. They have advanced restraint systems. Those cars have a lot of crumple zones in them. They are made to be much safer in a high-speed wreck. So that really is a lot of it.
They've even got lane departure control.
Barkley says, I like the Sykeston house rules better. Well, I can tell you, for No Name Nationals, we have a pretty intensive tech program because I don't ever want to see one of those cars have the paramedics cut the roof off and take one of my friends out of the car because they died in a crash from not running safety equipment that they should have been all along. I don't ever want to be in that position. I don't want that to ever happen. So,
And and you probably don't know anybody that's been in a 5-year lawsuit over
oh,
because it just goes on, and it starts at the top. The track is going to get sued.
yeah.
John and Dallas will get sued.
So when they do lawsuits, what they do is they sue everybody and then they dismiss people one at a time until they figure out who they can get the money out of. That's pretty much how they do it. It's dirty, but that's what they do.
It's the deepest pockets win.
So all cars going down the track must have a helmet. Okay. So that is the rule for AHRA events. All cars have to have a helmet regardless of ET. If you're 765 or slower, you can have a DOT helmet. If you're 764 or quicker, you must have a Snell 2015 or newer.
Correct.
Andrew Nelson says 2009, he thinks, is for one set of rules. In 2014, they have built-in rollover negations, must have factory parts, including airbags. Yeah. So that's exactly what's up with that. We rarely see any cars that new at the Nationals, but if you're in that category, then consult the rule book.
Absolutely.
One-Eyed Cat asks, isn't it a neat question, are helmets allowed to be painted?
Yes.
Yeah, but if you're painting it and we see a teaspoon of Bondo to hide a crack, don't do that.
Right.
But yeah, you can paint it.
And preferably just paint the outside, not the inside.
If you paint the inside, you got to test it, make sure it fits before the paint dries.
Yeah, there you go.
But you know, guys, it is common sense. If you're going to race a car, have a helmet. Just have a helmet. It'll encourage you to race more if you don't have to borrow a helmet. Can you wear shorts and flip-flops?
Yeah, if you
No.
sit in the stand,
Yeah, if you sit in the stands.
no shorts, tank tops, open shoes, or sandals.
You must have appropriate attire for the monkey bike too. Closed toe. You can't really have exposed skin on the monkey bike. You have to have long sleeves, long pants, closed-toed shoes to ride the monkey bike, and you can't have shoes like that to race anyway. Preferably not the visor. I like visor up with a windshield. That's just me. And Fastang had asked if these rules are substantially similar to other sanctioning bodies. Yes, they are. They're close.
Yes.
They're close. Think of it like driving regulations. They're pretty close everywhere you go. But then you see places that have strange things like no right on red in New York City, and some of these little, turn lane things. They're a little bit different places you go. But the rules are really close. If you pass tech properly in any of the big sanctioning bodies, you'll probably be substantially close passing tech in any of the others. Okay, a specific topic, Slant Daily Garage here has padding on the roll bars when it's needed and the spec.
Oh, that I'll have to look that one up.
Yep. We can get back with you on that, Professor P. So if you have something specific on that, shoot me an email. I'll get it over to Deke. Big Block 402 says passenger passes are solo only. The last I heard, we were allowing passengers to ride on a solo, has to have the same safety equipment as the driver, and only in cars down to a 640. Any quicker than that, it starts getting sketchy.
I've got on the co-driver 16 years old, only on 895 and slower.
895 and slower. I think we were allowing a little bit quicker than that, but we'll get with Dallas on that. That's a sanctioning body question. But for most people, yeah, you can give rides. They have to have your safety equipment too.
And that includes helmet, legal
Yep.
belt, everything.
Yep. If you have to have a fire jacket, they have to have a fire jacket. The good news is a passenger is usually not a normal thing on the track. You might be able to borrow a jacket or something like that. You may, but try to work these things out ahead of time.
The roll cage must be padded anywhere the driver's helmet may come into contact with cage while in the driving position. All cars running 639 and quicker padding must meet SFI spec 45.1.
JMJ sticks his head in and says, "Hi, how's it going, Joe? Thanks for coming in." I'll put out another reminder because we're here in the middle. Anybody who is going to be running monkey bike, please let me know. Shoot me an email message. Let me know if you plan on running monkey bike. Anybody who's planning on entering the burnout competition, shoot me an email or text. Let me know. Anybody planning on running 28-10-5, shoot me an email. Let me know. Reason is because this is the season where we're going to start having lives dedicated to specific classes as we run up to the home stretch of the No Name Nationals. Those are going to be our themes this month. So just putting that out there while we're here right in the middle. If you plan on running any of those 3 classes, let me know. Thank you. If you don't know yet and show up and want to run them, that's fine too. But the heads up will help me with the live streams we have planned for the rest of this month, and probably help some other people too. Mohawk says, first year drivers meeting, and it was said that the left side of the track exits first at the big end, so the right lane is not crossing in front of them. Is this still true? Well, the turnoff does go to the left at Sykeston, Mohawk.
I would buy that.
Yeah, your turnoff goes left at Sykeston. Cool. All sounds good, gentlemen. I'm wanting to put together some live streams just for those classes this month. So thank you. 38 POS Racing asks, is a parking brake required for stick shift cars?
Well, there's no specific rule for it.
Okay. No, it's not required. Big Block 402 says, I lubed up the turnoff a couple of years ago. Left lane first. That's what Barkley says, left lane first.
Common courtesy.
Yeah. Big Mike says, I can't believe we're almost back to Sykeston. The time catches up with you quickly. It comes upon us quickly. This is why we try to remind you guys all throughout the year, and we have these tech lives, because it comes up quick. Y'all getting excited about getting together in person with all these folks that we normally only see here on YouTube? Tony has a couple old sets of tires that need to leave this world. We got the place for him to do that. Does he have to wait if there's a piston down in the shutdown? Well, I mean, you know, if you don't realize it's going to be a pro tree and you get caught napping, and your other guy's way out there in front, you know, that changes things. Someone breaks in the left lane, that changes things. So use common sense, check and make sure. We don't want any people running into each other up in the shutdown. The worst thing is probably not the damage to your cars. The worst thing is everybody's going to laugh and point and film it. So Barkley's at 225 subs. He is almost halfway there. If you've not yet gone over to check out the Schmidt Show Garage, you need to see that. Cool family. And if you're not yet familiar with who Barkley here is, Barkley has helped us run the No Name Nationals. He's done track prep, help us set up for burnout competition. He's helped us with lots of things. And his wife Angie, if you've come through the gate and come through the ticket booth last year and the year before, Angie was running the ticket booth. And in the tower, the first year Lindsay ran the tower. So she's the one that got all your car numbers in and all that good stuff. So the Schmidt family has been a huge help to the No Name Nationals. So go over and check out his channel. Lots of great stuff. If he earns your sub, please do.
The Schmidts have been a valuable asset. Besides,
Indeed. Good folks.
yes,
Barkley can clean up some more. Barkley knows how to do it. He knows how to do lots of stuff. Patrick says, do it now. How many stickers you usually go through at the No Name Nationals? Blue Grid, I don't know, man. You probably bring 100, you'd probably be fine. I don't know. It depends how much you want to do with them and give them away. You could probably give away a couple hundred easily. Whatever you think.
and you got 40 days to go, guys. Maybe
You got
fix
time.
some leaks. Fix a few leaks.
Yeah, I'm going to say it again. Fix your leaks. If you got something you know's been leaking and you've been feeding that thing for years and your driveway looks like the Exxon Valdez turned over on it, please just fix it. Now's the time. If you need to pull that drive shaft and change that $10 seal that has cost you $100 of transmission fluid, now's the time to do it. We're actually trying to save you money. Do it. Get it over with. Cultured Redneck Garage asks, just getting in for the brackets. Do we get to pick our own driver numbers? And is it okay to display? Okay, so here's the deal. The number needs to be displayed on the left-hand side of the vehicle so that it's visible from the tower. And no, you don't get to pick your numbers. That said, I have a lot of them that are reserved from year to year, and drivers keep them. Like, you will never get number one from Jay Matheson. Okay, Rapid Transit. Jay probably has a medical directive that if he's ever in a coma to keep his number one. All right. So people have their numbers and they keep them from year to year. That said, there's going to be lots of holes in that book from people who have not re-registered and whatnot. And so sometimes there's a random chance I can get you a number you want, but don't count on it. Any number at the No Name Nationals is a good number. And people, it has shocked me how many people keep their numbers on their cars year round. It is a thing. I didn't expect that, but it's pretty freaking cool.
Another thing, when we had a little snafu last year, it didn't. With some help, it worked out. But when you fill out your tech card, when you fill your name out and all that, where you're from, blah blah blah. We don't care about your social security number because
Now,
we're not going to pay you. And
you'll probably have a special tech card for this event, so I'll get with you on that, D. We can streamline the tech card itself, but I know the track likes to have it signed.
it needs to be signed on the back.
Yeah, so that you came through tech and they know who brought the car through.
And also, so everybody knows who you are. Put your YouTube channel on there.
Yeah,
the name of your channel.
Yeah. Barkley mentioned, let's get a bunch of stickers for the window at the tower this year. Yeah, just in general, bring your channel stickers. They are like currency at that event. If you've never been before, you'll see what we're talking about. You see this board behind me? I mean, these are No Name Nationals. I have another board ready to go up. I got one sticker, it's MIA, and then I'll put that board up. Ron English says he's grandfathered on 62. That brings up another good point. I've said this each year. If you re-register by Labor Day, you'll get to keep your number. I can't give that guarantee the next year. The numbers are 5-inch numbers. Okay, I issue them at the track. So if you have something that's never been there before and you've never put a number, make sure you have a place to put a 5-inch high. It could be as many as we're reaching into 3-digit numbers now. So if you've never had a number before, it'll probably be starting with a 1, like 130 or something. Okay. But I'll issue your car numbers. I'll give you the decal. I give it to you when you get there. Can't send them out ahead of time because so many people might not show up or whatever, and or have something break. They've already put it on, show up with something different. Blake says they look good on a Hemi hood scoop. Hemi hood scoop is a tad short for one, but it'll work as long as the tower can read it. Schmidt show says the window's half covered. It is, so that's why it's good to put it on the quarter glass or something like that. Although just Mopar Joe has his right here, right beside his helmet. Turbo Tom is 1/6. Turbo Tom 416. His number is 116. That's right. Those numbers are big, but I'm sure the tower likes it because they can read them. Big white numbers. Big block, by the way, that's a Model T Ford. It's older than a Model A. Junkyard D would like you to cover trunk-mounted fuel cell, battery, and nitrous bottle requirements. That's cool.
Well, the fuel cell needs to have straps, of course, holding it down. The battery hold down. Let's go with the battery hold down. It needs to be bolted at least through the floor, preferably through the frame. 3/8 bolt with a 1-inch bar across the top. That includes if you're putting it in a battery box. You can't just bolt the battery box, plastic battery box down, throw your battery in it, and strap the lid on. It needs to have 3/8 bolt holding it down through the floor to the frame if you can. A lot of times that is not possible. And a 1-inch bar across the top. Whether it's a 1-inch round bar, 1-inch square bar, 1 inch wide by 1/4 inch angle iron, for example. We don't want the battery to move whatsoever. Let's see, the fuel cell. It needs to be bolted down as well, and I believe that's 1/8 inch by 1-inch straps, top and bottom, bolted or welded to the frame in front. And that's typical fuel cell installations. I'll have to hunt for the nitrous. Nobody runs nitrous anymore because they can only find it.
Hey, Ron, we're going to try not to get weird numbers like Demo Derby. What I can tell you is that we're well into the ones now. So I'll probably bring in several driver numbers up into the ones, but not, we're going to try to keep it all in the realm of reason on numbers. I got to tell you, people really like just having a number for the No Name Nationals, and it's pretty unique. When you see it, you know what it is. It's a big, stark, tall, white number. Just Mopar Joe has kept his No Name Nationals number on his car all year in all his tracks, everything. That big number 8. Bad Tree Productions Nacho Cuda has number 21 right on the door. Still there to this day.
Okay.
Bad Tree Productions, when do you need to run an external battery kill switch?
When the battery is moved to the front.
Big Block 402 is because it's 52 on the door. Yeah. I want to give a reminder, guys. If you're re-registered by if you're re-registered by Labor Day, you'll get your same number back. You might after that, but I can't guarantee you because at some point in time, I've got to start getting my car numbers issued. So make sure. And Barkley, I'll have to see. I don't know off the top of my head who may or may not have those numbers. I'm just not sure. I have to look and see. I have no problem with that if those numbers are available. but I haven't started doing the issue yet. I will look at that after Labor Day. Oh, and to claim a number, you got to show up to claim it. Clint, I've got you a new number 40. No problem. You're already re-registered. You already have 40. I will bring you a new 40. The final will be there to track. Yeah, Don's already got 62. It's perfect for a 62 model car.
Okay, on the nitrous bottle, this is pretty ambiguous. All bottles must be securely mounted, and that's all it says. They must be stamped with a minimum DOT 1,800 pound rating, and the bottles need to be recertified every 5 years. If you've got a bottle in there, I'm going to look for the date.
Hear that? So if somebody sells you a 20-year-old nitrous system, remember the bottle's got to be in date, and don't hide nitrous in bottles that aren't rated for the PSI. I don't care if you hide nitrous from your callouts at all. I'm totally cool with that. It just has to be safe.
And any of the bottles you have, the relief valve needs to be vented outside of the driver's compartment or completely isolated from the driver's compartment. And that would be a sealed rear bulkhead.
We don't want a nitrous bottle blowing up like what happened on Jerry Ekman's car in the pits at Columbus.
I saw a video about 5 or 6 months ago. A guy had a bottle blow up in his shop.
Yeah.
It almost took his leg off.
We have a guy in our community that's been closer to that than that. We take nitrous very seriously. In fact, I have a live from last year where we had a few guys discussing serious injury, grievous bodily harm from things and what they learned and how to be safer with like things like your safety equipment, things like your nitrous, things like why you need to run your transmission shields and all that stuff. That's not a bad live to go back and watch. I had Nivlac 57 Bad Attitude C10 Cope Racing transmissions. It was me with those three guys. That's a good live to go back and watch if you need to know some real world reasons why we do this. It is not all academic. A lot of these things are written in blood. And so we want you guys to never be that example. So Cultured Redneck, yeah, you can see those numbers on any of these guys' channels that have run and still have them on their vehicles. A lot of them do. And you can see exactly what those numbers look like. They're a black background with a white number. And you're looking for like, what is it, 182 or something? We're actually going to be pretty close to those numbers this year. So that might be entirely possible. Tony, if you want to put the link up to that live so people can just bookmark it and watch it at their leisure, that would be great. Again, the purpose of it is we're not here to fearmonger or anything like that. We just want you to know that these rules are not just made up for anybody's ego. There are reasons for these rules. So we just want people to be safe. But it was a very interesting live. Listen to those guys talk about the reasons for things that we do, the things we do.
As another additional on the nitrous bottles, or pressurized CO2 bottles for your shifters or what have you. Zip ties and hose clamps are not acceptable to hold them down. If you got the money to run a nitrous system, you've got the money to buy the bracket, put the bottle in, and bolt it to the floor of your tank. Same with the CO2 for a shifter or throttle control or whatever.
Cultured Redneck Garage, if you want to know what to make that plate, look at anybody running a 3-digit number on their car, and that tag will be exactly the size you need. I can actually get you those dimensions if you want to put a plate on there. I know you've worked hard at making sure your stuff passes tech, and I appreciate that. And this stuff is all for you. You know, you guys get all the benefit from this because once you go and tech enter to No Name Nationals, guess what? You have a safer street car and race car ever thereafter. If you get in a traffic crash in November this year and you made your car safer for the No Name Nationals, that's completely to your benefit.
And we don't make a dime off of it.
No, absolutely not. In fact, we take a little bit of heat from it for people who just like to get by with stuff, and it just comes with it. But I got to tell you, overall, this group has been wonderfully receptive to getting their stuff in shape to pass tech. Really, they have. We rarely have people really complain about things. Sometimes they grit their teeth a little bit over having to spend a little bit to fix something. But you know what? In the end, this group has been really nice and polite and very receptive to getting tech things caught up, and we do appreciate that.
And at the end of the day, you're much safer.
Yeah.
If something does happen, you got a lot better chance of walking away from it.
Yeah. So I want to thank you guys for that. You guys have handled that really, really cool. Oh, Barkley says, very good point. Save your antifreeze before you come, or I'll have buckets to collect it. Collect it all. Yeah. So you do have to get rid of your glycol antifreeze must go before you can go down the track. Antifreeze is the hardest to clean up. We don't want any of it getting on the track. And you're just going to drain it out. You can run water. I don't have a problem if you run glycol-free coolant, but I got to tell you, it's awfully hard to police. And I would really hate for somebody to just lie and say, oh, yeah, that's glycol-free. So we can't be having that. So the safest thing to do is just run water. It's not going to freeze in the middle of September in southern Missouri. Levi's asking about a proper CO2 bottle mount. He has hose clamps holding it, but it's a CO2 bottle.
You get in any of the big catalogs sell brackets for CO2 bottles. The hose clamps and zip ties won't fly.
Okay, there you go, Levi. So you have some superior fabrication skills. Now will be the great time to make a new mount, a proper bottle mount, and put it on your channel. Hey, Blue Grit, if you have like a door that has a number on it for that, this number will look different than your painted door number for autocross or whatnot. So that should probably be fine. That should be fine. We'll talk about that. It shouldn't be a problem. Yeah, as Big Block 402 says, if you have, let's just say Herbie the Love Bug that had a giant 53 on the door, I don't think that's going to cause any confusion over the No Name Nationals specific numbers that we give you, because they all look the same. And it makes it easier for the tower. You don't have all those different kinds of numbers and such. So Mohawk says firewall in back if you have a fuel cell battery in the trunk. So when must that would be a good thing to just talk about in general. Firewalls in the back or boxes for batteries. When would those become necessity?
Well, you need the battery in a box if you don't have a new bulkhead. But I say run the bulkhead.
The last thing you want in a wreck is for your battery to go flying.
Or the liquid out of the battery.
Yeah, either one. That battery's a huge, heavy. That battery, how much heavier is a battery than a sledgehammer? 5 times?
Yeah.
And you want that thing when you hit something to come flying from the back? and with acid and with a hot cable attached to it getting drug across a bunch of metal, I would
Yeah.
rather keep all that from happening. Clint's asking, Vic, you going to be there, Victor, in Stone Soup? Bad Tree's talking about Olympic breakdancing. I didn't know that was a thing. Cool. The time has flown tonight. It's been a blast.
Oh yeah.
I mean, we've only got 10 minutes left, but I'll tell you what, if any of you guys have any other questions, you can continue to ask questions. Send me an email. My email is john@PrincetonDragway.com. I'm going to throw that in the chat real quick. If you have any questions, and it's also on the registration site. If you've not yet registered, it will be a great time to do so. You can get me any questions you may have for Deke, and I will find out.
So, rear firewall of 24,000 steel or 32,000 aluminum, including the package tray required when battery is located in front. In lieu of a rear firewall, battery may be located in a sealed 24,000 steel or a sealed 32,000 aluminum or AHRA accepted poly box. That would be a sealed box. Box may not be used to secure battery and must be vented outside of the body.
So there you go, 24 thousandths inch steel or 32 thousandths inch thick aluminum or a box. Big Block 402 asks, what is the buy-in for 10.5? It's a $100 bill. And depending on the field we have and what, we may make some tweaks to 28.10.5 for next year. We can absolutely see some changes, but I figure we really want to see what this year brings before we decide which way we're going to go with it. Tony's Hot Rod Garage is going to be live after us tonight. He says T-minus 9 minutes. So after this live wraps up here in a few minutes, Tony's Hot Rod Garage will be live. You'll get to see the Rat Rod. He's going to be live from the garage of Tony's Hot Rod Garage. I want a 26 in class. What does that mean? Ron English, what does my shirt say? My shirt says, I love breaker points. And you notice the shirt color is Bakelite.
Nice.
If you don't know what that is, you've never run breaker points anyway.
Don't dwell on it, John.
26-inch small tire. Problem is, Sean, is just figuring out what all will get in there. So we're going to do something different. Here's the thing, Sean, you're a racer. And I would characterize the people who come to the No Name Nationals as, we have a few racers, but mostly they're just car enthusiasts, and most of them have never been down a track before. And so to try to have equipment limited classes is a little bit harder. Because we don't have people who are racers first and they're racing to a class. So I get it. I kind of like having a tire limited class. I got to tell you something else, Sean. Check this out. Calvin Nelson may be bringing a 26-inch tire on his Fairmont wagon. That may make you reconsider. That car's not slow. Victor was on a track when he was young. It was circular and made of dirt, but I digress. Aunt Nancy says good night. Aunt Nancy, have you sat and listened to this entire live that is focused on passing tech? Are you going to bring your 2007 Pacifica to pass tech and go down the track? Is that what you want to do? I'd love it if my Aunt Nancy came to the No Name Nationals. That'd be so cool. Big Block 402 is going to George Ray's. Yep. I like George Ray's. That's a cool old track. It's kind of a bucket list thing for me. And by the way, I should show this. So this is cool. I'll show this off. I told, and I never even thought about it after I said it, but I had mentioned that it was a bucket list thing for me to see George Ray's Wildcat drag strip, right? I've never been there. And do you know that Leighton Welding and Big Block 402 got together and they gave a few of us, they gave one to, I believe, Dallas, one to Two Hacks, one to me, one of these vintage trophies from George Ray's that they
Nice.
won. Look at that. Leighton and Big Block 402. Isn't that cool? And they don't do these anymore. This is a vintage George Ray's trophy. Now, I have it sitting back here in the back of my studio, right below the board, and you can see it over my, well, you can't with this alternate setup here, but when I'm on my main camera, you can see it. I've been working on doing a little studio expansion here pretty soon, and when I do, you'll see it. It'll be real prominent. Diecast Dreams, I'm going to be running my 85 Dodge van from here to the pits and setting up. The only time I go down the track is when I drive out there to set up the signs on the guard walls. Aunt Nancy, you would have great accommodations if you want to come down to No Name Nationals. We would love to have you. And you all could meet my Aunt Nancy. Big Block has some of the trophies there from the 70s and 80s, and they're cool. May do. Yeah, sure, that'd be great. I like to make sure that people know where that came from. Those guys won that trophy, and I have it because it's a vintage piece from the track. I don't want anybody to think that I have a racing trophy I won and earned, because I will tell you I did not. But I want people to know where it's a cool piece. I want people to know where it came from. And I'm going to display it a little better when I do my studio expansion. You'll see. You can see the top of it over my shoulder in every live. In case you were ever wondering what that was, that's what it is. NSB, do we need to play on digging again this year? I'm going to have the answer to that here next week. That is on my short list. I'm going to have the answer to that because I got to work some logistics out with Mayor Possum for that burnout pit, and I'm going to do that next week. Big Block 402 wants to race Haney and Casper this year. Well, you will need to talk to those respective owners. Aunt Nancy will be treated with respect as everyone else. I agree. Tony, you're going to need to talk to Cope about that. BB402, I appreciate that. I will tell you, we will need volunteers this year, as always. If you're able to volunteer on Thursday to help us get some stuff set up, it will be greatly appreciated. Thank you, Barrows. Appreciate that much. Barkley says they're all still full. Okay, so we may not have to move any sand. We'll still need a little bit of manpower for doing stuff, but he says they're still loaded. That's a good thing. That's a really good thing because we couldn't do that the first year, but I appreciate that. So those of you who can volunteer, I'm going to be reaching out to you here in the coming weeks. And I got to tell you, all the volunteering, all the helping is truly great for this event and very, very helpful. Anybody have any last question? Because we got 1 minute left and we're going to wrap up so that Tony's Hot Rod Garage can fire up and go live, and you guys can hang out with him and his new rat rod build. Yes, Barkley, I'm going to talk with Possum about that this week. Anybody else have any last things for Mr. Deke? I do want to thank Deke for coming out tonight. I really appreciate that. He's taking time out of his weekend to come out and help you guys to give you an easier time through tech. We would love to see every car go through tech 100% pass on the first try, no problems. And that's why we do this. It helps. It helps you. It helps him. It helps everyone. And the quicker we get through tech, what that allows us to do from year to year is forecast when we can leave for Lambert's and have our car show, right? So tech time opening date. I'm going to publish a day schedule here real soon, but it will be morning. We'll have an entire working day for tech inspection on Thursday. Okay. But with that, we're at our time. So thank you guys for coming out. I appreciate you and I appreciate your participation tonight. And if you have any
Yep.
questions, email them to me, john@princetondragway.com. I will get that question to Deke and or Dallas as necessary. And we'll let you guys get your tech stuff together and have a great weekend. Thanks for coming out. I'll see you here in a few days. Take care.
Thank you, everybody.